Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissick and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissick.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, before we get started, what's new with you?
Oh, gosh, I feel like we've talked more this week than we have in a month.
I know. We don't give time to be something new.
I know. No, there's really nothing new, actually, since we talked yesterday. Anything new with you? I will say I took a ton. I've already been implementing stuff I learned from Sid on our last one.
Oh, gosh, wasn't that amazing? I cannot wait. I've done about 3 Zoom calls this morning with offices, and every one of them, I'm like, you've got to listen to this podcast of Sid. I don't know when it's going to drop because we're a little bit ahead on the recording, which is a great thing for a change. But it was so good. I could have talked a whole nother hour to him.
I know. I think we need to have him back. I went on ahead and downloaded his other 2 books last night, too.
Yes. Awesome. They were really good. All right. So, well, what's new with me? Really, I guess nothing since yesterday. I can't think of anything except I'm super excited because today, again, we have a guest. And Tammy Gordon is someone who is in the real estate business, and our paths crossed because someone gave her the podcast, I guess, a year ago, Tammy?
Yes, about that.
That's
And
awesome.
so we had a great conversation the other day, and it was so good. I just said, you know what, Tammy, if you've got these questions, I know other people who are trying to build a team and build a big business have the same one. So let's go back and revamp our call. So Tammy, what I'd like to do first is let's tell our audience kind of you were born and then what happened. Of course, Cliff Note version, because we want to get to as much as we can here, but kind of bring us forward to how you even got in the real estate business.
Sure. Okay. So I have been an agent almost exactly 5 years this month, as a matter of fact. And prior to that, my first career was in the military. I served for almost 30 years and absolutely loved that.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Yes. Thank you for your service.
I kind of just fell into it, but it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And I ended up marrying my husband, who we actually had known each other long before I even joined the military. We kind of grew up together since like the 3rd grade, but we didn't really go together, so to speak. And then he went off to the military, I went off to the military, and lo and behold, we landed at the same base. So we kind of we reconnected our friendship, and then fast forward, we've been married for almost 29 years.
Wow.
Awesome. I love that. I told her there had to be fate or destiny for them to be from the same small place and wind up in the same place.
So we have 2 adult grown sons now, Jared and Logan, and they also served in the military. So our entire family did. Tim, of course, was in as well. So that's kind of our background. And then after I retired from the military, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do next. And I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with my mom, which was wonderful. I'm very blessed to have done that. She was pretty sick, and my father had passed away several years prior to that. And my mom still lived in our family farm, and it was literally falling down around her. So we knew she had to sell her house, and it was a really scary time for her. So we reached out to a local real estate agent, and she came in, and she was just wonderful with Mom. She made a very stressful situation so doable for her. Mm-hmm. So we got the home sold, and Mom moved into this really cute little apartment, and she got to live there for about 6 months before she passed. But it just kind of left an impression on me with what the agent had done for Mom during that really scary time. So one of my good friends was also a realtor, and she kind of reached out to me and took me under her wing and showed me the ropes. So I worked with her in the same brokerage for about 5 years. So loved the brokerage, loved the people, and I did really well. I became a top agent, and then being so busy, my husband took an early retirement from his job, and he also became a realtor.
Wow.
So we're doing the thing together now, and we really didn't seek out to form a team, but it kind of just happened. So it was me, it was Tim, and then almost exactly 1 year later from now, we became a team of 8. So yeah, so that was kind of, and it was just such a fast time. The Central Ohio market is so crazy.
Yeah.
So we kind of felt like we were just, going by the seat of our pants and just trying to keep everything afloat. And then COVID hit. And I think it was kind of like during that time that I did some soul searching of, I've got to control this. I was a leader in the military, and I felt like I wasn't being a very good leader for my team.
Mm-hmm.
So again, love the brokerage where we were at, but I just kind of felt like it may have been time to take another course and kind of start from scratch and maybe kind of get back to the basics here and do a reset and reboot just to make sure that, we were doing good by our team. So we were approached, and as of yesterday was my first onboarding day. We are now with Keller Williams. So that's kind of where we're at. And we were drawn to them by a lot of the training that they offer and the technology. My husband did a lot of research, and it just seemed like this may be the best fit for our team. So that's where we are. And again, it's kind of like a reboot. So we're trying to learn as we go. But I want to kind of take it a little slower and just make sure that we're building the team from the ground up the right way.
Right. And go ahead, Dana.
I was just going to say, just to give our listeners a frame of reference, what like volume units, GCI, any of the above, did y'all do, say, like last year?
I think I had about 45 transactions.
Okay, perfect.
And Tammy, is that just you, or is that everybody on the team too?
No, that's just me.
Okay. So I love this. So first I want to ask you this question. How did you, because we always love to know this question, how did you ever get a hold of our podcast? How did you wind up with our podcast?
I don't know if someone told me about it or I was doing just some research, because I'm a learner. I'm always trying to, again, do the best I can. And I just ran across it somewhere. I think I was just Googling different types of podcasts for real estate.
Awesome.
So you guys have been in my head for about a year. I've learned a lot of internet and fasting from you.
Hey, that's my other passion. I'm going to do a podcast like that one of these days when I find the sciencey person that can co-host it with me.
Which is not me.
Because Dana's not that, and I'm not that either. But I'm looking for that person if anybody knows them. However, I wanted to kind of go back, because when we talked the other day, we kind of started the way I always start every conversation with someone is I ask you, if you and I were having this discussion 3 years from now, today, this very discussion, and you were saying you were happy with your progress, what things would have to happen. And I loved what your response was, because you said, well, I want my team to succeed. I want them to be successful. And why I bring that up is because you and I dove into it, and I said, well, how will we know when we got that? What will that look like? And the reason I do that is because a lot of times when you said it yourself, I don't know how, but I somehow became a team of 8. It's like I got into real estate. All of a sudden my husband got in, and now I got 8 people, So I think that happens a lot because we do run so quickly and so fast in the business that building a team somehow just happens to some people. And so because of that, they don't really have a model or a system that they're following, and it can kind of get out of whack pretty quickly. So one of the first things I asked you was, how will we know that? And the reason I ask you that question is because a lot of times when we're building a team, we don't bother to know what success even looks like. And so if we don't really have an end game of how was that quantifiable, what will it look like, then we just kind of get in over our head and start slinging things around and together. And we sometimes get close to the target, and sometimes we miss it all the way together. So I love that we kind of had a chance to say, okay, well, let's look at this. And whether the other thing I want to point out is, spouses working together is not easy. Having been someone who has come a long journey of working with my spouse for many, many years, and me being in the business first, I know all the obstacles and things that can happen from that also. And then I think you also said your sister is in the business, and I also have a family that runs in the business. All those come with their own dynamics, their own set of issues. And so to me, having a good model and a format to follow takes the emotion away from, no, we're going to do it my way. No, we're going to do it my way. No, I want to do it this way. And that's where you and I talked about you reading the MREA book, and let's just get on target with that.
Definitely. Sounds good.
That was one of my questions I was going to ask later, was about how it's been working with your spouse. Because I think a lot of people Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things we talked about is for her to be able to figure out if her team is what is success, you got to go learn from each single one of them. What will success look like for them? Because what starts to happen, and Dana, you and I have experienced this, and we've listened to other people on the podcast and other people that were helping experience this. You all of a sudden wake up and you lose this great person that you weren't prepared to lose because you didn't have a clue what they wanted to accomplish out of their life in the first place. So Tammy, kind of talk to us. Let's pick it up from there. You kind of talked a little bit about some of the struggles that we've had. Why don't we kind of talk a little bit about some of those, and then I'll bring up a couple other points that you and I for sure hit on that I think was really important to a lot of people.
Sure. Okay. Some of the things, I know you and I talked about a few things, and then I since then was thinking about some others, but I guess one of them, the things that I was curious about, is advice for not only a team, but a new agent with starting a new brokerage. I don't want it to look like we're, just becoming agents, because we've all been agents at different times. But what does that look like to market ourselves as a team, and a team with a new brokerage as well, without there being any negatives as far as someone thinking like they had relationships with us before, our clients. And I want them to realize, that the relationships are the same, that we're just, we just have a different business card.
Oh, wow. There's so much there to unpack. Dana,
Great
you
question. Oh my gosh, I know. I'm thinking. You go first.
All right. So much to unpack there. I love this because first of all, we have to understand in our mind, people do business with you as the agent. They do not do business with the brokerage. All right. So an agent should choose the brokerage based on, this is where the tools and the training and everything I need, the technology and everything I need to build the biggest business I can possibly build. Because now that you have a team, you actually have an obligation to build it as big as it can be. To say, I've got enough, or I don't really need that much, and you and I talked about this on our thing. You cannot do that when you're building a team for two reasons. One, first of all, we don't know how much is enough because we don't know what life's going to give us. So we want to get out of that mindset. Number two, if a team member hears you say that and they want big things, they're going to say, well, I'm never going to be able to get big things with Tammy because she's happy with what she's got, and sure, she don't need that much. So we want to lift that lid completely. And so kind of unpacking that, we want to get set on the right foot. We want to build it in such a way that it can be as big as it can be, and not just as big as we can be. Does that make sense? And the consumer does business with you. You have to become the brand, right? And so the team members do business with you because you control the leads. You do business with a brokerage because they're going to help you have the biggest life possible and the biggest business possible. And the way you get people to keep recognizing your name is to build a brand that's recognizable and serve them in such a way that value is hard for anyone else to beat in the industry. So you can still use all of your successes in your marketing and advertising, no matter where you were, right? And so I am going to tell you, most people don't have a clue where you are anyway. And so the main thing you can do is connect with them right away, to let them know that you're super excited about the opportunities and all the value that your new company is now going to bring to them also. And it makes you have a reason to reach out and touch to them, because remember, your database is your asset. And so we want to work that database even more. If you've not been working at all, we want to work it even more. If you've been working at some, we want to work it even more. And so this is a great opportunity to do that. But I will tell you, 99% of the time, the agents are worried about it more in their head than the consumer ever cares. The consumer cares about themselves and what you're going to do for them. They don't really care where you are. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I found, I was there in the early years when people were moving, when hardly anybody knew who Keller Williams was. And now it's so well known. It's so number one in all the categories that the consumers actually sometimes know us better than realtors know us. So I don't think you have to be afraid about that at all. Dana, what would you add or say to that?
Yeah, I would say ditto everything Linda said. And I've always said this, Tammy, people do business with you because they like you, they trust you, they were referred to you. And there's a statistic, and I think it's like over 87% of consumers don't even know what company their real estate agent is with. They only know Tammy Gordon. They only know Linda McKissick. They only know Dana. They don't even know what brokerage their company is with, or what brokerage their agent is with. And after transitioning hundreds of people to Keller Williams now, one of the biggest fears I think in a lot of agents when they switch to any brokerage, not just KW, but is that their business is going to go down during the transition of them switching. And I always tell people, when you do it right, your business will go up, because you got to make a big splash about it, because it's about them. I mean, most of the time agents are making a move to grow their business and to give their clients a better experience and to figure out a way to increase their experience for their clients. And so when you do it the right way and you make a big splash out of it, it gets people talking. It's another way to touch your database. And here's the thing, if one of your friends called you and said, oh my gosh, I got this big promotion and now I'm over at such and such doing such and such, you'd be like, congratulations, that's awesome. How can I help you? And that's how our clients are the same exact way, where I think people don't have success from that is where they don't make a big splash out of it, or they don't tell the right story to tell their clients exactly what's in it for them. And like Linda said, now you're with the number one real estate company in the world. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of things. I'm big on the storytelling part of that and using it as a touch in your database. And I think we've said this before, but just a squirrel side plug for a minute. Donald Miller's How to Build a Story Brand or something like that book, I'll look it up in a minute, is the best I have ever listened to or read when it comes to really figuring out how to tell your story. And we have agents that listen from all companies, and our podcast has never been about and will never be about trying to just get people to Keller Williams. We talk about it because we know it. That's what we know. And we talk about other, being at Remax, we talk sometimes about other things too. But I always tell people, when you choose your brokerage, exactly what Linda said, it should be for the value that it's going to give you. And I do think it's funny because a lot of people will say, I just had this conversation with an agent who's not with Keller Williams last week. And the very first thing she said was, well, we don't see a lot of Keller Williams signs. And I said, well, what I'll say about that is, though, at Keller Williams, everybody brands themselves. And that was probably one of the top 3 reasons that I actually switched, was because it should be about you and your brand and your logo and your team and your colors and your, key or house or whatever, not about the big brokerage, branding the brokerage. And so sometimes people don't even know that it's a Keller Williams sign because it's so much about the agent, which I like that part of it. So, so I would just say, make sure that you're making a big deal out of it and you're telling a really good story, because your people will be so excited for you that they'll want to help you and they'll want to see you succeed. We just don't, our brains don't think about it like that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yes, Friday we are having a meeting where we're coming up with a team logo.
Love it.
So we're going to start branding that, that way. And it never crossed our mind at the previous brokerage because of that very thing.
Tammy, are you doing that with your team leader, or are you guys just doing that on your own, or what are y'all doing? Who's we?
We as in the whole team. We always try to do things together as a team. And actually when we decided to move, that was one of the first things we did, was we approached the team and we said, this is going to be a group consensus that if the majority says we stay, we stay. If the majority says we go, we go. So we were very fortunate that everyone was on board with that. And we're trying to do the same thing with this. We want as much input as possible on the team logo.
Hey, remind me to tell you too, I have a really great person on Etsy that we use for a ton of people's logos that we've moved over. And just for anybody listening, the days of having to spend $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 on a logo are over. I mean, you can get an amazing one for $50 on Etsy. I mean,
nice.
That really, really, really good ones that you can brand yourself and come up with your own thing. So sometimes people skip that step because, 5-10 years ago, I can remember I paid $2,800 for a logo one time when this was probably about 10 years ago through a company. And now those days are over. So it's easy to brand yourself.
Very nice. And we do have someone at the Market Center that is going to be there to kind of guide us.
Awesome.
Well, actually, a leadership call we were on earlier this morning, actually what the leaders were getting shown, we run the regional team. So what the leaders were getting shown is they were actually getting shown all the different logos that they could show to their agents to help them pick, what kind of style do you want? What kind of image do you want? That's exactly what our whole leadership meeting was about. So there's lots of different opportunities for you to do that. And Dana, I'm sure you can, if you think of other things, you can kind of shoot them to Tammy afterwards.
Absolutely.
On things that she has available to her now that she may not know about.
Yep.
So I love that. And here's the thing: this is the reason I wanted you to come on this podcast is when people are thinking about building a team, the farther and along you get on this, the more overwhelming it's going to be to try to figure out how to right the ship and get it back up right. And so, not that it's impossible, because it never is. And it's like an elephant. And because it's a big elephant, you're going to eat the whole elephant. Doesn't matter where you start, but it can feel overwhelming, especially if you now come to a place where you've got all these ideas. You've got marketing, you've got technology, you've got lead generation, and all these things are things you've got ways to put a smart plan together for your database. It can be overwhelming. Tammy, what I want you to do is don't get overwhelmed. Let's just take one piece at a time. And this is for anybody, no matter who you're with or how you're putting your team together. First of all, if you're out there and you're putting a team together, go read the MREA book. Everybody get on the same page.
Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Yep.
Yeah, Millionaire Real Estate Agent, because this is the formula that has proven over and over again. And I said this to Tammy on our call the other day. We're starting to see agents in the top 100 that are having these massive teams, and they're winding up with no money because they've taken that red book model and they've gotten off course. They've got their creativity in there, and they've started paying out too much splits. They've started letting the people on their team control the leads rather than them control the leads. And so let's learn from other people. That's how I learn best, from my own failures and other people's. And so that's why we want to say, look, don't add creativity. Go just follow the model. And then you can kind of see, okay, I got it set up right in the first place, so I don't have to go back and redo it. But anything you've done that once you read that and you find you're off model, you can go back and fix, or you can grandfather people in and start over. There's lots of different ways to do it. But I just think having a model to follow takes out so much of the ambiguity and the fighting over whose ways to do it. And no, we want to do it this way. And no, I want to do it this way. No, we're going to do it this way because we want to make $1 million out of this business. Because if you're going to start adding enough other people in it, it has to be big for everybody to get out of it what they want.
I'm about halfway through the book, and that's definitely, I'm trying to push through it as quick as I can, while we are doing this. But yeah, it's been pretty crazy right now with just getting all the information and all the systems, and everything's a little different. And then plus we have a pretty big client load that we're juggling. So
yeah, it makes it harder, doesn't it?
Yes. If it makes you feel any better, there's never a good time.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And that is my main concern.
People think that there's like this magic week of the year that is like the best time to make a move, and there's never. It's always either we're busy, or we have the holidays, or we have. It's just there's never a good time. You just have to do it when you can do it.
Well, and there's never a good time to work on the business because you're always working in it. So you almost have to either time block for that, or you have to say, my life's going to get out of whack for just a little bit. I'm going to have to do some extra time, weekends or something, to work on the business, or time block for it or something, because there's never a good time to work on your business either. And that's where agents get in traps. They just constantly work in, and you don't have a chance to strategize and plan and put the right things in place so it can get bigger, because you're always in it on a big old, rat race treadmill.
Mm-hmm. Very much. I agree with that.
And honestly, Tammy, you might be at the point where Gary's talking about. This might be your couple 3 to 5 years where you're supercharging your life, because you're really in it, especially your husband's in it. And now you've committed to these people on your team, and you might have a couple of years where that was one of my biggest ahas at the beginning of this year. Remember, Linda, do you remember that when Gary talked about supercharging your life? And it's not something that you're going to do forever. And you're not going to be working these long hours forever or doing this stuff forever, but you might have a time period. And he said sometimes for people that's 1 to 5 years where you're like, I'm in it and I'm supercharging right now. And I know that because I know that later I won't have to, I might not have to work as hard as I'm working right now, but this is a time where I know I can do it and make it into something really, really big.
Yeah. And if once you're starting to build a team, teams are based on number of listings you have. So Tammy, if I had to say, where's the best place to start? I would say start by figuring out how you can become a strong listing agent and control all the leads and have an amazing admin staff. And then most of doing that will take care of any other issue that you ever have.
That's my next goal. Is I was just talking to my husband this morning. I'm like, we definitely need to get an admin because we're at that point now where I'm spending way too much time on loops and stuff like that, where I need to be more in the business, exactly what you're saying, or on the business rather, reading the books and things like that.
Yeah. And, also having a team can either feel like you're pulling a big old wagon up a hill or you're all pulling it together. Mm-hmm. And so what I've learned that I didn't know in the very beginning is challenge other people to read the same book. And you guys get back to have everyone on your team read the book. Because I'm going to tell you, this is going to tell you a lot about who's on your team. Mm-hmm. Everybody has to read the book. And in one of our meetings, we come back together and we're going to talk about what was your biggest aha from the meeting? What are you from the book, what are you most excited about? What part do you think you can contribute? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to tell you right there, that's going to tell you who your players are and who your non-players are. And it's better off to know now, because the more people, as a leader, we get drained so much when we try to do things. We try to push people up a hill, or we try to be the motivation for all of it, or we try to carry the load. You can't do that. So the best way to do it is start delegating right now. All right, everybody get a red book. You can either get it on audio or you can read it, but we're going to read it and we're going to come together. And then what will happen, Tammy, is people will start to say, oh, I can do this part. I can help us set up this, or, oh, hey, I can see now how I can contribute more. And man, your load gets a lot lighter, and because you can't carry this whole team. Mm-hmm. It'll exhaust you.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point, Linda. And we might have a lot of listeners who maybe they haven't just changed companies, but they need to do a reset with their team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, and this is a time to do it, right? We're dead in the middle of the year, June 16th, or well, I don't know when this episode will air, but we're recording on June 17th. So like I just had this conversation for an office meeting on Tuesday. It's time to do, I can't even believe it's the middle of June, first of all, and the year's halfway over, but it might be time to just do a reset in general. And, I remember you and I talked about this before, Linda, but like taking your team when we get back to this, but when you go to conferences or trainings, because when they're there and they hear it versus you going and hearing it and then trying to bring it back to them, it's like a totally different ballgame.
Yeah. Yes. You're all excited. You've read the book and you're ready to get started. And they're looking at you like, what? We're out here busy as heck. What the heck you want us to do now? So that would be one bit of advice is I would say, let them all read the book too. Tell them your number one role is to be the visionary and go out and get listings, because listings bring great buyers. And then the rest of it, you need to find the team members and they need to be owning those pieces of it.
That's a great idea. So do you have any tips then as far as just keeping the team motivated? So once we are, in this together and moving forward.
I love this, Dana. How many times have we had this? I asked Tammy this at the very end of our call last week. I said, Tammy, what topics would you want to hear? And by the way, she gave me some great ones. So these are going to be some of our topics because you gave me some great ones. But I always love it because I think her third or fourth one was, how do you motivate the team? And I don't know how many times we get that. So again, here's what I'm going to add. And then Dana, I want you to add too, but hire motivated people. And the way you tell if they're motivated or not is when you give them that book. If they come back to you with a fire in their belly like you are excited about, I hope, because you're going to have a lot of work to do. If you're not excited, it's going to be harder. But if they're not that excited, you probably have the wrong people. Mm-hmm. And it's either going to bite you now or it's going to bite you later. Right. And some will be more motivated than others. And that's showing you who your leaders are and who your star players are. But the best way to motivate people is and Dana, you may have a different take on this. Our regional team is doing a contest right now. And I have to be honest, when I first heard it, I thought, I think I've read books that contests don't really work, but I actually see this one working.
Mm-hmm.
So Dana, talk to that a little bit. And what would you say?
Yeah, I would say definitely number one, you have to have motivated people. And I think on the flip side of that, I think a lot of times when we're hiring people, we think that they're all motivated or we think that they're as motivated as we are. And then you get in it a couple months down the road and you're like, man, I thought they were a lot more motivated than what
Maybe that was my motivation I was putting over on them.
Yeah, but I love something that Gary's taught us, and he said you can't motivate people, you have to motivate people. And that's been one of my biggest ahas this year. And so I would say a couple things, honestly, Tammy. One, to keep them motivated and to motivate them, I think you have to stay in constant communication, and especially in the beginning, be really consistent. So like I always tell agents, especially teams, you need to have a weekly team meeting, same day, same time, have an agenda, like stay consistent with it, because the more that you can stay consistent and make it a habit, then they're going to be engaged. And then the other thing I think is, and you can use this since you're with KW, and really anybody can, we would send it to anybody, even if you're not with Keller Williams, but the KPA, I would have a KPA on every single one of your team members, validate it with them so that you can know their why. Because if we're just being totally honest, all of us have days where we are not motivated and all of us have days where we're like, we're done with this. We don't want to do this anymore. And I'm actually talking to one of my mega agents in one of my offices this afternoon because she has a team member that wants to leave. And they just said, I don't want to be, it's too big. Your vision's too big. I don't want to have this big life. I don't want to do all these big, numbers or whatever, but I know that she's worn down and she just needs, we need to get back to her why. Why is she in it? And when you know your people, it's much easier to motivate them because you can go back and say, now remember, I know that your future is that you want to be able to, pay for your kids to go to college, or you really want to take 3 vacations a year, or whatever those things are that, ever you want to buy a new car, whatever it is. And then you can bring that back, because sometimes I find it's not just that they're just not motivated anymore. It's that they can be burned out or they're not bought into the vision. So also, I know this is like a fire squad at you right now, but when you get done with the MREA, you should read Vision Driven Leader.
Yes.
You and I are reading that.
Good.
It's so good. And it's by Michael Hyatt. And honestly, he talks about this in there. And he says, when people start to feel like they're not motivated, it's because either they don't know what the vision is, like they don't even know where they're going towards, or they've somehow like lost track. They've switched the vision in their head. And a lot of times it's us as a leaders where we think the vision's really clear, but then our people are like, where the heck are we going? Why are we doing this every day? And so I think I know that's kind of a lot, but that would be my advice.
That's very good advice. And one thing I want to add to that, Danny, you talked about them doing the KPA, and I also think people are motivated when they're on the right, when their behavior matches the right seat on the bus.
Yes.
So learning career visioning, and we talked a little bit about this, going to some class or somewhere, and for us, it's career visioning over and over and over again till you really understand the value of putting the right people in the right spots of who they are naturally and what their unique abilities are and what their behavior is one of the best motivators you can give. Because think about it, Tammy, think about a time in your life when you were doing something that didn't match who you are. Wasn't that harder to stay motivated?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So think about it like that. If you're doing something that you were born to do, it matches who you are behaviorally, I'm super motivated, but you start trying to get me to do something that is hard for me or not my unique ability. And I feel like, golly, when's this week going to be over? I don't want to do this anymore. So think about that for your people also.
Yeah. And you have to watch that, because honestly, like take Linda, for example, she's driven and her biggest strength finder is responsibility. So even if she doesn't want to do it, she's going to do it because either she told you she's going to do it or she doesn't want to lose or whatever. But she's not going to do it for long. But she could win at it temporarily because she's a driver and she's an achiever and she'll do it. But we can all do stuff like that on our natural tendencies when you're a driver usually. But if it's not really your unique ability, like she said, then they're not going to last. They're not going to be in it for the long haul. They may achieve it for 6 months or a year, and then they're going to be like, I'm over this. It's too hard.
Definitely. Yeah. We all did just take the KPAs. We haven't gotten our results back yet, but so that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
You're on the right track.
Yeah. So did you have something, was there another one, Tammy? I don't know if I cut you off on one of them or we didn't, you were saying another challenge or question or?
Yes. One thing I was curious about, a lot of times when I was first in the industry, everyone always talked about you have to have your niche, or as you guys say, your niche.
We say niche, but we're trying to be correct because we're from the South and we don't know how to say anything correctly. So
Well, that's how I say it too. I speak the same language as you.
we're all good. Then. Hey, when it's just us, we can say niche all we want to.
When we have fancy people on,
we try to
we had to
speak
say
correctly.
niche. Sounds like quiche. It always makes me hungry. I keep thinking of quiche every time I hear niche.
Well, I was curious though, because it seemed like I was always kind of instructed that, you to find your niche and what is your niche in this market. So I did kind of develop that with myself, with basically the military and veteran community. So I became known as the VA realtor. That's even what my license plate says, because that was a large portion of my clients. And I was just kind of like drawn that way, obviously, because when you're in the military, you kind of speak a second language. So we kind of spoke the same language. So, and I still have a lot of clients that are in the military, but as a group, should the group have individual niches, or should we try to have a group one? I just didn't know if that advertising as such, or, again, being individual experts, or not having not being classified as that's your niche.
Yeah, I don't know that well, okay, so here's a good point. I think you can do what you want to do is kind of like Walmart does an ink blot. He started in one spot and he went out, right? And then I heard a story of a guy that niched himself as a photographer that only did bottles, right? But as his business grew and he needed for it to grow more, then all of a sudden he was a photographer that did, others. So you can expand on those. And I think what you have to do is ask yourself, who do I enjoy helping the most? And then I think we don't do it because we're afraid it's going to be too small. Mm-hmm. But everybody's going to have who they're most valid to. So you might have your team, and you might not, was it Glenn that was talking to us about, or was it Dean that was talking to us about the guy that was the lakefront property guy?
Right. That's what I was just going to say, that because that Glenn talked a lot. It was Glenn. Glenn talked a lot about the different niches, and sounds even worse when you pluralize it. But he was the one that talked about that.
Yeah. So yeah, you got to say, who do I love helping? Who do I have the most validity with? And you can kind of build off of that. If you have the most validity with VA, that's where I'd start. And I'd grow that as big as I possibly could. And then I would say, okay, what other validity do we have? What other group could we help because we have that validity? Mm-hmm. And you could do each group based on that validity that you have. Maybe it's a person on your team. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's testimonials from that group of people. But if you don't enjoy, first-time home buyers, then you don't want to just do first-time home buyers, right? You want to find somebody on the team that they love first-time home buyers, and that's what lights them up and makes them happy.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say, I always have encouraged the team members on my team and anybody else that I talk to that they should have their own. I mean, like Sarah, for instance, on my team, she's crushing it right now. And a lot of hers have been students and families going to UK because she just graduated from UK and she's familiar with that world, and all of her friends, her friends who are her age now have siblings going to UK, so their parents are buying in places. I think she's closed 7 or 8 this year already of people buying something that's kind of her niche. Like that's her age group. Her friends are all starting to buy their first house, and then you may have somebody else who is really into, like I have another girl who's really into being a mom and mom world. So she has a closed Facebook group just for moms in this specific area, and she gets a lot of her business from there. So I think if your team members have something that really resonates with them, I have never had a problem with that. I think that they could all have their own, and then it's all going to tie back into the big vision of the team. But if your big vision of the team is a certain goal, then yeah, I think they can go create, their own. And as long as it doesn't get flip-flopped where they feel like they're bringing in all the business and because that's happened before too. We hear that a lot where the buyer's agent's bringing in all the business, the team's not really giving them anything. And then that's when it starts to go.
Well, and of the team members, Tammy and I talked about this the other day, and the thing she has to get in front of quickly as possible is controlling the leads.
Right.
Because the people that are so frustrated on building teams and not making much money have not been in control of the leads, and they lose their team members because their team members are bringing in more business than the lead person is actually generating for the team. So this is a big issue, and you want to get in front of this as soon as possible.
Yeah.
That was another question that I had as well, was just in your experience then, what have you found that does seem to be a good ROI as far as lead generations?
I think it depends on which source it is. You know, the warmer the lead, the bigger the ROI is going to be, right?
Usually it's always going to be your database, your sphere of influence, and your database. I mean, there are some people who are more transactional, and they have a great ROI from their Zillow leads, or from their realtor.com leads, or from their Facebook leads. I would say a strong 90% of people are going to say their best ROIs from their database. But you may find those outliers that get more, but they really work it. I always say do the one that you're going to work, because I've wasted a lot of money on realtor.com, and we never worked those leads. And we never made any money from it, because they were harder than working our sphere and calling our own people. And so my people didn't love those, but I think it's what you're going to do, what you're going to focus on. And Gary's been saying a lot, get back to direct mail, get back to doing,
I agree,
touching your people, because everybody's at home more now than they have been before. Get back and investing in your top 20 clients, where you may give them a present every single month, but they're never going to tell anybody else to use another agent besides Tammy Gordon. I mean, I think that's my opinion. That's what we do.
I totally agree with that. Ours was always database, and I was heavy on direct mail. You know, my philosophy has been, you know, everybody else has always said, you know, prospecting based with marketing enhanced. I have to be honest, my business that I was able to turn over for 20 plus years and someone else to run, and them take it from 200 transactions to 300 transactions, and then me to now be in the process of selling it to my brother-in-law and going to wind up netting over $1 million after he ran it for me for 20 years. I couldn't have done that if I hadn't have been marketing based with prospecting and referral enhanced. So I don't always preach 100% prospecting. I am a believer in you build a name and a brand, and you milk that for as much as you can, and the prospecting is just enhancing it.
Well, you're the person who went to Hawaii and somebody knew you, so wasn't it Hawaii?
Yeah, exactly. I thought if I could just get known in my city as the person, when they think of real estate, they think of me. And it was so good when I went to Hawaii, the girl recognized me as real estate. And I'm like, now that is better than the fruit stand in the grocery store.
Yep.
So your marketing exercise that you're going to do is going to be super important. And I'd take my time and really get some feedback, and, you know, get on Connect and look at, you know, what other people are doing in KW, because we got some great marketeers in there, and you might as well steal all the great ideas. That's called research and development, rip off and duplicate. That was my philosophy on all of it.
Have you ever looked, totally curious, this may not even exist anymore, but I think it does, but have you ever looked at the Homes for Heroes program?
I have, yes.
Yeah, that used to be really big in Kentucky. And we had an agent in my office who came long line of military, and she did very well from participating in the Homes for Heroes program.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've got maybe just a few more minutes. We're kind of running out of time here. We talked about making sure you learn the career visioning process now that you're going to succeed through people. We talked about building a brand so that people recognize your name in real estate.
Talk about staying motivated, keeping your people motivated.
Keeping your people motivated. Tapping into what their dreams and goals are, and making sure on somewhat yearly basis or whatever that you actually check back in with them and say, how are you doing? Or when you're holding them accountable and they get kind of like their off goal, you know, what about this goal of getting a new home in 12 months has changed? I mean, keep them back on what was important to them in the first place. And I think that was pretty much all the things we had. Was there anything else you can think of, Tammy, that we didn't cover that you and I talked about last week?
That was most of it. And I think I did write down just any other tools or videos or books or podcasts that may kind of go through the process of building the team. But I wrote down the vision-driven leader.
Yes, love that. That's one of the, and to be honest with you, that one's always been hard for me. I just feel like, hey, I love Keller Williams' vision of building careers worth having, lives worth living, and businesses worth owning. And I'm like, let's just go for that. But I think even more intricately, you need to have one for your team and where you're going. I love this book. I mean, I'm just devouring it. And I love Michael Hyatt because he's a very values-based relationship leader.
And he's so easy to read. Man, he's so like just I don't feel like
he really is.
He's not over your head. You know what I mean?
And I always tell, my purpose statement of I help successful but overworked real estate entrepreneurs understand the power of leverage and passive income so that they can get freedom and margin for what matters most to them actually came from a private session that I did with a small group of people. And it came from Michael Hyatt's daughter of Megan listening to what my passion and my heart was. And she helped me craft that. And the minute I heard it, it gave me chill bumps. And so I knew it was the right one. So I think getting that clear about, your purpose and what you're doing, and these could take years to do, it took me years, are super important because that's what's going to drive you when you're tired and you don't feel like doing it and you're so busy you don't even know whether you're coming or going. That's the stuff that's going to keep driving you.
I was just getting ready to say that, Linda. Don't you feel like on the days that maybe you have that you're like, ugh, that if you read that or look at that, you're like, okay, this is why I'm going to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah. And even better than that, when the days I feel that way, I'm not doing that.
Right.
So the days, like I've had I know you've been the same too. I've been on calls all this week. I was on calls last week. And I have to tell you, the days that I was kind of like, was the days I didn't have any calls. Yeah. I'm like, I don't like this. I want to do that. And so when I'm doing that, it fires me up and gives me more energy and more motivation.
You're going to feel like you're drinking out of a fire hose for a minute, but that's normal. So just keep on drinking.
Yeah. So I would say get on Connect and watch as many videos of top producers as you possibly can. Because I always get my inspiration from other people.
I was going to say, talk to other people.
Yeah. And talk to other people. And, don't stay stuck more than 10 minutes on something because first of all, don't create anything. You're wasting your time. Everything has been created. Job descriptions for your team, how you should pay them, what you should hold them accountable for. Don't spend 10 minutes on that stuff. Somebody's already created it. Just ask your team leader or another fellow agent, where would I find this stuff? You've always got Dana and I as a resource. We can kind of help point you. Get on KW Connect every single day and night. Require that that's part of your training for your team, because the more you have people out there looking for their own answers, the less they're coming to you, needing you to give them the answers. So keep them doing that. You'll have plenty to do for a good while. By the time you do the MREA book several times, you find out where they're going to teach career visioning, and you get in that several times, and you listen to KW Connect videos. We have so many classes on there. Is that where all these classes we've been doing? That is where they're going to be, right, on Connect?
Yeah, and we have a great so you have to be with Keller Williams to go on Connect, but any agent can go on YouTube and search Keller Williams Ohio Valley Region, and we've got all of our stuff on our YouTube, and there's a ton of great stuff on there. I just added a bunch more this week, and right now, actually, I'm looking for a time in July to do career visioning.
Perfect.
To teach it on Zoom, because we've had so many people wanting to take that course, and unfortunately our event got canceled due to
I was supposed to teach it in July in Austin, and that got canceled. I am going to teach it in October in Florida, so if anybody wants to come in person, that one looks like it's still going to make.
Where are you doing that, Tampa?
I don't know if I'm in Tampa or Fort Lauderdale. I never know where I'm going until somebody tells me, till I see a plane ticket that tells me what city I'm going to land in.
I know, and usually when you go teach in Florida, I conveniently need to go teach. I need to be in Florida. I use that as an excuse to go listen to Linda.
Yeah, or I think you just like to get to Florida too.
I do. I'm like, okay, what guest can I take to Florida?
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, Tammy, any last burning, desiring questions? You have us as a resource now, so you don't have to get all your questions in now. But is there any last thoughts, questions, concerns you have that Dana and I can answer? And then Dana, I'd like to wrap up with you with any thoughts or questions you'd like to add, that if you were giving her advice, what would you tell her to do first?
I guess the biggest thing, and it's funny because, it was so strange when Tim came home and said, "Hey, I just got a call from so and so wanting us to go talk to them again, but I told him you weren't interested." And it was just weird. It just felt totally different this time because we actually had spoken with this person a couple years ago, and I said no. I said, let's call him, and he was very surprised.
He's
But it
like,
was like
typical woman, typical wife. I don't have a clue what she's thinking.
but it was just different this time, and I knew in my heart, I'm like, this, it's time to do this. It's time to make this leap, and it is kind of a leap of faith. But as soon as I did that, it was I'm just like the pieces are starting to fall into place. I mean, the puzzle's not put together yet, but I just have a feeling that it's going to get there. So I'm just very excited, and I really appreciate you guys giving me this opportunity to speak with you. This has been pretty cool.
Well, I knew when we talked, Tammy, everything you were asking, there had to be other people out there struggling with the same thing. And I wanted to get people before they get their teams too big to get them moving in the right direction. Because when I get on calls, when you probably do this too, Dana, you get on calls with people and they've got it so out of whack, they feel like it's just too overwhelming and they don't even know how to get it straightened back out. Yeah. So the biggest things would control the leads, control the listings, have a great ad man, and don't get your splits out of whack is what I would say. That would be my final thoughts. Dana, what would be the final thoughts you'd give her?
Tell a great story. If you don't have a marketing person or an admin person, that needs to be your next hire, because it'll be so much leverage for you when you can. One of my favorite quotes is Simon Sinek, and he says, the purpose of a great business is to build customers who create other customers. And if you tell a great story, you're creating customers who create other customers. You don't have to worry about your lead gen sources as much as at that point, because you're creating that kind of tribe of your clients. And the other thing I would say is, I love what you said, that you had talked to whoever the person was that contacted you a couple of years ago and it wasn't the right fit, and then now that it was. But as we think of that as leaders trying to grow our offices, but as realtors, we should all think of that as well, because it's just a timing thing. And so just like how it wasn't the right time for you then, but it was the right time for you right now, when we're staying in touch with our clients, then
that's so true.
It might not be the right time for them to buy or sell right now, but when you keep staying consistent and you keep staying in touch with them, then at some point it will be the right time. And so, yeah, I think that would be my advice. Stay consistent. I'm so proud of you. You're going to do so good. You're going to love it, Tammy.
Thank you very much.
It sounds like you've already done a ton just in 5 years. So that's a big accomplishment also.
Yeah. And, pretty much when you're at this level and this volume, you have everything you need to make $1 million in real estate. You just got to get the dominoes lined up and get the pieces in place and the players in the right spot.
Well, I'm going to try.
Awesome. Well, we're going to bet on you, aren't we, Dana?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So we're about out of time. Dana, do you have anything you want to add before I close this out?
Yes, I just want to quickly read another review. We've been going through our reviews, and they're so humbling, and we appreciate everybody. And just a quick reminder, if you'd like for us to read your review on the podcast, then you got to go give us one. So make sure that you, our goal is to hit 200 on iTunes as quickly as possible, and we would really love your help. And so this one came from, I don't know the name, it says Aspiring Realtor, and I thought this was just a really great one, and it was just a couple weeks ago. And so this person said, "Thank you for doing the episode We Stand Together. I'm not a real estate agent yet, but I'm working on getting my license. And with everything going on, I just started wondering for the first time how hard it may be for me to get in the business because of the color of my skin. So thank you." So with everything going on right now, just a reminder, if you did not listen to that, man, we've gotten such incredible feedback from that episode, We Stand Together. And I would highly encourage everyone to go listen to that too. And it's actually episode 77.
Awesome. I'm glad you know that, because I have no idea.
Well, I had to look it up.
Awesome. And remember, if you're sitting here listening to Tammy and you think, well, I've got some questions I'd love to have Dana and Linda help me with, then be sure and reach out to us at info@everything life in real estate. And remember, the more detail you give us about your business and where you are, the more help we're going to be able to help you with and give you. And if you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review. Like Dana said, we'd love to have your reviews, and we're trying to get to 200. And honestly, the best compliment you can give us is to pass this podcast on to a friend. If you find value in our conversations and our guests that we have on and our topics, then please pay us the highest compliment you can by passing this podcast on to another fellow realtor or business person that you feel like might get value. And I just want to say, Tammy, thank you so much for being willing to come on and share all of your insights and things that are going on with you and your team, and allowing us to help you. And Dana, I guess I'll see you next week.
Sounds good. See you then. Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.